Hello and welcome to the Windows Virtual Desktop session as part of Digital Disrupt 2020. I'm Pavithra and I'm going to be spending the next 20 minutes going over the new features that we have added with the latest update to the service. So Windows Virtual Desktop as a service went GA in September 2019. We had a bunch of really good features that were part of it. But customers did ask for extra feature requests because they wanted to ease their management experience as well as user experience. So some of the things that we have added as part of the latest update to Windows Virtual Desktop are tighter integration to Azure Resource Manager. And in the upcoming slides, I will go over what that actually means for customers now that Windows Virtual Desktop is actually integrated into ARM. We also have an Azure Portal native management experience now for customers to deploy and manage the Windows Virtual Desktop environment. Now customers can choose the location where the service metadata can be stored. And lastly, we have made media optimizations so that Microsoft Teams can be supported on Windows Virtual Desktop. So when we went GA, as I mentioned earlier, we got a lot of feedback from customers that they wanted Windows Virtual Desktop to support a bunch of features. And some of the features are listed here. They wanted a GUI portal for managing WVD, for onboarding to WVD. They wanted to get rid of the app consent that we had as part of the GA service. And they wanted to use native Azure RBAC, as well as be able to assign Azure Active Directory security groups to app groups instead of just individual users. So once we integrated into Azure Resource Manager, we were actually able to provide these features as part of the service. So now that we have integrated into the ARM framework, customers can use the Azure portal to manage and monitor their environment, so they can do the whole deployment management as well as monitoring of the Windows virtual environment. They will be able to select the geography where the service metadata can be stored. At present, we only support the US geography, but we will be adding more geographies as we progress. We are now a true first-party Azure service. That means that customers do not have to give explicit consent for our service to read your Azure Active Directory. As part of the app publishing improvements, Azure Active Directory user groups can now be used to publish app groups to their users. Native Azure RBAC roles can be used to restrict admin access to Windows Virtual Desktop objects. And lastly, the Windows Virtual Desktop PowerShell is completely integrated into the Azure Portal module. Since we made the change to the Azure Resource Manager framework, we also had to update the object model that we initially went GA with. So now this is the updated object model to fit the Azure Resource Manager framework. Essentially, we have three top-level WVD objects, which are the workspace, host pool, and application group. And every one of these objects requires an Azure subscription, resource group, as well as location associated with it. So host pool is essentially a collection of references to a virtual machine. So the virtual machine is the physical component sitting on the customer's environment, and a session host is the service reference to that virtual machine. And so using the host pool, you can do session host management, which is essentially translated to user session management, as well as very high level session management, like you can change the drain mode of the session host, etc. And then we have the application group, which is another high level object, and it is a standalone object, but it cannot be created without referring to a host pool. It can be of two types, which is remote app or desktop. And it also refers to a workspace. So if you want to provide a user access to a desktop, for example, then you create a desktop app group, which needs to refer to an existing host pool, and then publish this desktop app group to the user. But additionally, you have to also ensure that this desktop app group is registered with the workspace. Why? Because the workspace is where all the desktop app groups and remote app groups that you want surfaced to the user need to be registered. You can have multiple workspaces just like you can have multiple host pools and application groups. But an app group cannot be accessed by a user unless and until it is registered to a workspace. All right, so now that you've seen the object model, let's take a look at how the portal experience is. So I'm going to move to the Azure portal. So this is my Azure portal, and I have already opened the Windows Virtual Desktop Hub. So what you would do is you would sign into into the Azure portal, and then search for Windows Virtual Desktop, and it'll list a bunch of things. So you can go directly and manage application groups, host pool workspaces, or you can go to the hub, and in the hub you'll be able to manage them individually, or you can create them, you can do user management, etc. So the first thing the customer is going to do is create the host pool. So I'm going to walk through what the creation of the host pool actually entails. As I mentioned earlier, every ARM resource, including the WVD resource, requires a subscription resource group and location, and this is no different. I'm just going to select existing resource group, and I've selected a subscription. I'm going to put in a name for my host pool, and I'm going to select a location. At present, only US regions are listed here because we only support US for storing metadata. And so whichever region you select here for the US geography, all of the objects are going to be stored in the US geography. We do not store service metadata per region. We only store service metadata per geography, which is associated with the region. And then you select whether it's a test environment or a production environment. And here I'm going to be selecting a personal desktop host pool. And so I just select personnel and then leave this one as a default. Now I have the option of just creating the host pool and nothing else, but I'm going to actually show you what it entails to actually create a virtual machine, workspace, etc. So I'm going to select yes to create a virtual machine. I select the resource group. I select where my VM should be created. So VM location can be totally different from the host pool location. So VMs can be created where you've got existing virtual networks, which might be closer to your users as opposed to where you're storing the metadata for the host pool application group and workspace. And then you select how many VMs you want and give it a prefix. And then you decide what kind of image you want on the VM, just like you would with any other VM creation. And then you go directly to the domain name and password because you need to provide the domain credentials for this wizard to not only create the VM but also join the VM to the domain, and then lastly register the VM to the host pool. So that's it about the VM creation. Next step is where you're going to be dealing with workspaces and app groups. So as part of the host pool creation wizard, we will be creating a desktop application group as a result of this creation workflow. And so for you to use this desktop app group, you will have to register it to a workspace. So we have made it possible for you to create all of these at the same time. So I'm just going to create a new workspace here. Something. And that's about it. I do a review and create, it's going to do a validate, and at the end of this, your host pool is going to be created. So after this, it'll take about 20 minutes for all the VMs to be created, domain joined, and prepared for usage with Windows Virtual Desktop. So I'm going to show you an existing deployment that I just kicked off a couple of days ago. So this is a deployment that I made using the same wizard. So you can see that the host pool was created, and then the desktop app group was created, then the workspace was created and then linked to the desktop app group was linked to this workspace. And then we went through the whole VM creation workflow where the VM was created, domain joined, and then registered to the Windows Virtual Desktop host pool. So if I actually go to this particular desktop app group, I should be able to add the user. So instead of going through this, I'm going to go through the management workflow. So I'm going to click on host pool here from the hub, and then this is going to list a bunch of host pools that I've already created and that I have access to. And this is the one that we wanted to actually see in our for the user. All right, so this is the host pool, and now let's go to the app group here, because this is the app group that we wanted to add the user to. So you click on the app group and then go to assignments specifically, and then you add a user to this particular app group. So I'm going to be adding RDS demo user 1 alt to this app group. And once I add this, of course, I have to first ensure that this app group is associated with the workspace. And yes, I can see that this app group is associated with the workspace. And then I might want to change this to a friendly name for the user to understand that this is a new desktop app group that was created for that person. All right, so I can do all of this in this particular pane. Now I'm going to log in to my web client as this particular user. So I just go to this URL, I'm already logged in. I should be able to see this new desktop app group right here, and you can see I've got a new desktop app group associated with me. Now if I click on this, I should be able to log in using my user credentials. And then we will see how this user session can be managed using the portal. So I'm going to provide this my Active Directory credentials. It's going to take me a couple of seconds to log me into my Windows 10 multi-session desktop environment right here. All right, now let's go back here. I am in application group. Let's go back to the host pool. This is the host pool where I have some kind of session. But how do I know that? I can go here to the session host, and it shows me all the VMs and session hosts that are part of this particular host pool. Since there's just one, I'm going to click on that, and it should show me what the new user session was. For some reason, it's not showing me here. Yes, now it is showing me. There was just a little bit of lag. All right, now you can see that there is a new session here. I can do a send message, can do admin and say hello. And my user that's logged in here should be able to get that, right? So you can do session management using the portal. You can, create new host pools, workspace, and app group, all of that using the portal. Now let's go back to the host pool here and take a look at the access control. I mentioned you can use normal RBAC to control access from the admin side on these resources. So you just go to role assignments and you'll be able to see I have a bunch of people already assigned as owner on this particular host pool. You can add more if you want to, or you can actually remove them and add just contributor permissions for them. You can go to the properties here and you can update the property of the host pool. You can change from automatic to direct. You will be able to toggle between the validation environment. You can set RDP properties if you want redirection or any of those things set. You can set all of them from this one particular thing. Additionally, you can also set diagnostics on every single WD object. You just click on that object, go into diagnostic settings, and you will be able to add a diagnostic setting. So I can just add a setting name here and then decide on what logs I want piped as part of this diagnostic setting, and then decide what the endpoint of it would be. In my case, I already have a log analytics environment set up. And so I'm just going to select that, and if I click save, I will have my diagnostic setup. What this means is that when I actually go into log analytics workspace and I try to do any kind of query on my environment, I should be able to see data. So if I wanted to go here and say, let's say I want to do management, and I want to do a run on my management, I should be able to see some kind of data right here regarding all the different management operations that have happened within the last 30 days. This way you can do it for web feed, for user connections, etc., etc. And again, I have not left the Azure portal yet. I have created my host pool. I was able to assign my user. I was able to set access control, and now I'm looking at diagnostic logs all from Azure portal. And that's the latest feature that we have added as part of the management capabilities for Windows Virtual Desktop. All right, so you can also see how easy it was to create as well as manage your whole environment using the portal. So now let's move on to what we did as part of Teams. So as part of the Teams support for WVD, we support the full suite of Teams chat and collaboration functionality. That means your audio video calling, desktop sharing, group chats, all of that will be supported just like local Teams supports all of them. We will have a per machine installer for WVD deployments, and Teams will be supported on both personal and pooled host pool deployments. So what we have enabled is basically we have offloaded the video and the call data to the local PC instead of using the remote PC. And I will go over the high level architecture in the next slide. And this is all powered by WebRTC, and it enables really high performance calls and meetings. So let's take a look at the high level architecture. So currently when Teams calls with just device redirection, user 1 accessing Teams sitting remotely on a VM will make a call to the VM. The VM will establish a call to the remote VM or a remote device, and then the client will then access it on their own device. So you can see there are at least 4 hops in this. That means the user experience is going to be really bad. The media is going to be laggy, and it's not going to be optimized. So we have enabled WebRTC so that there are no multi-hop connection, but it's actually just a peer-to-peer connection. That means user 1 will still be establishing the call using Teams sitting on the remote VM, but only the call control goes from one VM to another. All the audio-visual multimedia data goes between the client device for user 1 and client device for user 2. So this P2P connectivity enables really good like local experience, though you're using remote Teams. Teams is already in public preview right now as part of Windows Virtual Desktop, and you can get more information on minimum network requirements, minimum hardware and software requirements to run this in aka.ms/WVD Teams. We have more features coming soon, like integration with WVD monitoring, application sharing, multi-monitor, desktop sharing, etc. And if you want to send feedback via our user voice page, if you're already using Teams, please go ahead and do so at aka.ms/WVD Teams feedback. So I hope you were able to see how easy it was to create your virtual environment, and how easy it was to manage your objects using the Azure portal, and what the benefits of Azure Resource Manager integration was. I hope you also realize that we are in public preview with the team support and how to get access to the team support. So do give us feedback if you want to using our user voice page, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Digital Disrupt sessions. Thank you so much.